Okay, let's spend a few minutes talking about some stuff like I don't know. Let's talk about stuff that's happening now that this generation is distracted from. I mean, when I was 16 years old, we're going to talk about the stuff that happened when I was 16, right around on that age. When I was 16 years old, they were distracting us with sex, drugs, and rock and roll, and video games, and get drunk and get high, and programming us kids to all that. It's cool to be violent and brutal. It's cool to steal cars and stuff like that. It's cool to be a nuisance to society. You see. And what were they distracting us from? Well, that's what we're here to talk about now. Because this is when the UN that wants to take authority over the few million people that are left free on this planet, they want to take control over them now. This is when the UN lost their authority, okay? It was back in 1980. There was a Psy-Ops. False flag, okay? America, I'll give you some background on this. America got involved in some stuff it shouldn't have got involved in. And they empowered over Iran a Shah, who was a deranged, tyrannical dictator, monster premonition. I mean, he won't be allowed to exist, and he will be time looped as all of his victims, okay? I mean, if you know God, Allah, then you know that you're on a spirit scan right now, and you know that you are merely a premonition of your potential existence. If you do not negatively affect anything with your existence here, then you get allowed to exist. And if you do negatively affect stuff, even via your influence, then you will be time looped as your victims, and then you'll be eternally executed so that you never exist via the time-space continuum to cause those negative things to happen to other entities that God created. You have no right to negatively affect anything God created, except for maybe like pestilence, like roaches or, bugs that are eating your food, stuff like that. But as far as animals, the food chain animals ain't getting treated right before they're killed. Bad enough we got to murder them, but they live torturous existences until we eat them, which is putting negative karma and energy on the food, meat. Okay, but back to the UN. What was the UN doing that put them in God, Christ, and Lucifer's crosshairs from then even until now? Okay, what were they involved in? Well, the Psy-Ops had the Shah of Iran being given what is it when they can go to another nation and they can just hide out there from the atrocities they committed in another nation. It's like that we gave him that thing where we let him come to our nation and live out the rest of his life. He only had a little bit of life left because he was dying of cancer or some shit. So we give him that. We bring him to America. The Americans did, the UN, all this shit. And that pissed off the Iranians, the Muslim Islamic infidels. Those who say they believe in God, but they spit in his face and deny that he sent his son, Jesus Christ, Yeshua. Those are who God describes as infidels, and God's description is what matters. Okay? It's like these infidels didn't really believe that God has control of things, and vengeance is mine, saith the Lord God Allah. Okay, so if you want vengeance upon another human entity, you want to do it yourself instead of putting it in his hands to do it, and you take it upon yourself to want to commit violence, then you have proven that you don't believe God Allah, that you think he's a liar, or that he's a weak little pussy who can't avenge you. Okay, now the Shah of Iran will be punished by God Allah, and he will not exist to commit his atrocities in Iran. That's how diabolically awesome this thing is, and how diabolical God is. He will allow you to get yourself punished and eternally executed for crimes you will not be allowed to commit, because you won't be allowed to exist to commit them. How you like them apples? They taste good, don't they? It shows the true righteousness of God, Allah. Yeah, that nobody that caused suffering gets allowed to exist. Nobody that wrote no evil books calling for the death of people. Nobody that called for the death of other people. If they didn't call for the death of pedophiles and deranged tyrannical dictators who oppress and torture and torment their own people, then they got, people who are torturing animals, stuff like that. I mean, real entities that don't exist and they should die anyway, right? If they're not calling for that, well, then they're wrong, because they could be calling for the death of one of God's end-time elect. And here's where the UN is fucking up, then and now and then. Okay, what did the UN distract from with this Psy-Ops, where every eye was focused on Iran and how they were hanging people, innocent people in the streets, how they went nuts, torturing Christians and stuff like that, and raping more little kids in the name of we won't send back their Shah so they can torture them to death. It's like, what was everybody being distracted from with that? In Bosnia, and there's a movie about this now. All things done in secret come to the light, baby. But it's like they were distracting from the things happening in Bosnia, where they were taking children, young, pretty girls, and some boys, but mostly girls, as sex slaves, right? And they were torturing them kids, a lot of times starving them out, selling their bodies sexually to non-existent monster premonition pedophile motherfuckers who are also in power. Okay, the reason that all this stuff happens is because the people are in power that want these things to be happening. Just like that's why there's heroin, cocaine, and meth all over the United States, even though they could stop it. Is because they want those drugs there. They want to be able to control people like they are controlled by their masters, you see, because they're on dope. And it's like, it's no secret that more than half the people in Washington, D.C. are stone cold dope fiends, and that's why they're so easily bought off to be treasonous traitors and terrorists, right? So the UN was distracting from something they were funding with taxpayer dollars from all the nations that they were representing at the time. This happened in like 1980, okay? You can look back in history and see when the stuff happened with the Shah of Iran, when they went nuts in Iran, okay? That's when this was happening. They were distracting from this so that they could get away with it. Okay, it's a psyops. It's false flag. They're playing psychological mind games with the masses. They've been doing it for a long time. Okay, they've been doing it since they infiltrated the government, the American government, back in the Lincoln days, when they took a monster who tortured people, Mr. Abraham Lincoln, because they wouldn't give up their land and join his regime, not his administration. They wouldn't join his regime, so they hung them by their thumbnails and shit like that, tortured these people, American people, to death, and they kept these atrocities hidden out of history, out of their manipulated history, and they lift him up as some kind of great liberator, where they took what he intended to be a terrorist attack on the South. He intended this to be a terrorist attack where he freed the slaves. All this stuff that he pretended like he felt blacks were equal to whites, that's all lies. His real feelings about blacks were exactly the opposite of what he notoriously gave a speech about and wrote about. That wasn't even written by him. Okay, it's like he had no regard for black people, felt like they should be in chains, and he felt like they were monsters, that if you loosed them from chains, that they would be a plague on society, and that's why he loosed them, because he couldn't get his way with the South. Okay, it eventually got solved with a civil war where the South lost, but before, it's like people don't understand what happened there. It's like that psyops. They've taken and branded him in your mind as some kind of hero. Oh, he's such a good man. He freed the slaves. Well, yeah, he freed the slaves, but it's not because he wanted to free the slaves. It's not because he wanted to liberate the black people. He figured that a lot of them would get killed off. Okay, that's what he really thought would happen to them. That they'd just all end up getting lynched and killed off, and it would keep the South distracted from what they were doing. You see, because they always distract from what they're doing. They make you look over there while they're over here. Now they have you looking down at iPhones while they're up there in the sky doing stuff to you. And you never bother to look up. You get so attuned to looking down at your little gadget that people can walk up on you on the street and take your gadget, your life, drag you in an alley and rape you, do whatever they want to you. Because they're programming you to not pay attention to your surroundings either. In a dangerous society where they've got people programmed to brutality and violence. Okay? So this was happening in 1980. How many years ago was that? 1990, 2000, 2010, 34 years ago, almost 35 years ago now. Okay? They were distracting from the fact that they were pedophiles taking taxpayer dollars and putting negative energy on their money by funding these operations to kidnap these children in Bosnia so that they can make sex slaves out of them. These are facts, irrefutable facts now. Okay, they're all exposed now. There were people trying to get those kids liberated via the UN, who found out that the UN was actually funding the operation and was actually behind protecting this operation and distracting from it. So all these treasonous traitors and terrorists disguised as government dignitaries could come in and have their way with little children. All right? Pedophilia. And then they want to associate Lucifer and God Allah to this stuff, when neither of them are pedophiles. They're not rapists neither. What does it say? Your wives will be raped when they get here? It says they will be ravished. That means that they love the sport of ravishing a woman, getting her to want to give up the ass instead of taking the ass. See the difference between the humans, the shitworm controlled little bitches on earth right now, and the advanced entities that are coming? That tells you what spirits are ruling them. The entities that are coming, their spirits aren't ruling here. Or that y'all will be getting prepared for Lucifer's arrival, pretending to be Jesus Christ for at least a growing season, right? You're not getting ready for that, so you're not being controlled by any spirit that, is connected to God or Jesus Christ, his son, or Lucifer, who will be coming here pretending to be Jesus Christ, his son. Do you see how more righteous Lucifer is than a Muslim Islamic infidel who denies that Jesus Christ is God's son? When Lucifer is coming here pretending to be him because he knows he's God's son? Right. Lucifer's been incarcerated for 2,000 years now, for those of y'all who don't know. He got incarcerated right before Christ was taken captive, and when Christ was taken captive, that's when the shitworm spirits, the lesser caliber spirits who didn't have bodies, and they've been sabotaging the agendas of God, Christ, and Lucifer ever since. It's like they started controlling the minds of humans, and the humans started torturing shit, and they made a big show of torturing the Son of God. That was their first big torture. All right? Lucifer, when he was roaming the planet, he kept that shit at bay. Now you have the UN being controlled by these shitworm spirits, these pedophilic shitworm spirits that have them thinking that, you need to disarm all the people so that the government can be, absolute power and control. Right? And then what do they do when they get that control? The things they did in Bosnia, they come snatch your kids up and start fucking them, selling their ass. And then when they're done with them, they don't come home. They torture them kids to death. Some of them they just sell off outright. And then them government dignitaries take them out, fuck them somewhere, and just dump their bodies. Yeah, you think I'm lying, huh? Okay, yeah. What about all the millions of the people that just got rescued after that recent typhoon wiped them out? Where did they go? Yeah, you can't find any of them anywhere. But they were rescued and flown away on planes. Okay, they were rescued. Yeah, they were probably sold to the Chinese, as slaves to try and even out the debt a little bit, right? Yeah, we don't know what happened to them. We're going to know because all things done in secret are coming to the light. Now, the UN wants to take the American guns away from the people because they have this shitworm spirit-controlled mentality that they should be in control of the people so that they can lose terrorists on them like they did across the seas, so that they can lose ISIS on them, so that they can lose gangsters on them. There's already gangsters running amok in America. The UN lost all authority on earth in God's eyes over his end time elect. But they have not accepted it yet. So now the UN is in the crosshairs of God, Allah, Christ, and Lucifer, whose conjoined end time agendas they are sabotaging with their mentality. They're not allowed to exist now.